Hi, kids! Victorious puppies! This team is ruining my life! Why do I watch hockey? Stress relief! Okay! We can, and we will! Alright, despair doodles. I don't know. I thought they deserved one. I thought you deserved one at very least. Oh, the honeymoon's over. It's all over. The season's over. It's all over! Do you still love me even when I don't have treats? Oh. Leafs lose 3-1 to the Colorado Avalanche. I don't have it today, folks. I got up at 6:45 this morning. It is 11:38 at the time. That's Iggy and Charlie. Look at how cute. I don't have it, man. I don't have it. I don't have whatever it is. I don't have it. I don't possess it. It does not belong to me. Been thinking for like 5 hours, like what I'm gonna say. I don't have it. And I also, like, I don't know, I try to go by hockey Twitter and, like, what people want. Like, okay, what does everyone want to talk about? And, jeez. And all I see is that everyone just wants to be mad. And that the season is over. And, I mean, then I listen to myself talk in the podcast, and I'm like, well, sounds like you're part of that, Steve. Here's my plan for today. Because we all got problems, alright? We're all going through some stuff. So I'm going to do a very brief reaction to this game. I'll take questions, but then I want to talk about our favorite Nazem Kadri memories. Because I was thinking about what to say in this video, and I was miserable. And then I took your questions, and I was still miserable. And I thought, what would Mary Kondo do? Because this does not spark joy right now. And then I asked you about Nazem Kadri, I saw some of your responses, and that sparked joy. So let's talk about this Leafs game and then afterwards be happy. I honestly didn't think it was that bad of a game. In fact, it was really encouraging. Second half of a back-to-back, I really liked the effort. I thought they were trying. Freddie Anderson begging to play the second half of a back-to-back against Sheldon Keefe's wishes. Just how don't you want to run through a wall after that? And Keefe actually getting creative. He had that Nylander-Matthews-Marner line, and it looked pretty good. Frankly, my only criticism is I wanted to see more of it. The defense pairings. Cody Ceci, after the podcast and after last LFR, where I said he'll never go to the third pair. He'll never break up Riley Ceci. He finally did it, and I thought it was to everyone's benefit. I really did. I liked Barry with Riley. I liked Ceci with Dermott. Hall and Muzzin should have left that alone, and they did. And they still lost. And don't ask me about the coffee. This isn't coffee. This is hot chocolate. That's how bad I feel for myself. I'm a grown man. I'm having hot chocolate. Donate to Sick Kids. But the Leafs take the first penalty of the game in a game that barely had any infractions. And, of course, Nathan MacKinnon with just a rip. Just a rip. And again, it's Nathan MacKinnon. You know, with Michael Hutchison, how we were going, oh, it's Jack Eichel, oh, it's Jeff Skinner, oh, it's Olofsson. Like, okay, stop one. He did. He stopped almost all of the rest of them. But not this one, because holy cow, Nathan MacKinnon, he's a top 5 player in the league. He's ridiculous. Leafs find a way to battle back. That new look third line, I actually really dig it. I want to see more of it. That Hyman, Kerfoot, Kapanen line. Really like it. Kerfoot, nifty little spin pass to Hyman, who whacks it in and then waves at someone in the stands after he scores the goal. I was so disappointed. I didn't see any reporter ask who he was waving at. Was it Frederic Gauthier? Because if it was, that's adorable. Jake Muzzin takes a 4-minute high sticking penalty. The Leafs kill the whole thing. And with Muzzin in the box, a key penalty killer. I'm telling you, even though Nathan MacKinnon scored that ridiculous goal, that power play goal, I've really liked the power play since, the penalty kill since Keefe came on board. The power play, not so much, because what happened there, I've never seen this. In all my years watching hockey, I've never seen this. What are either of you doing? Spencer's standing there like a weird scarecrow, like there's a dinosaur. Don't move a muscle. And Riley, fishing for it, what are you doing? And of course the choo-choo train gets on board. Valeri Nichushkin hadn't scored a goal since 2016, and now he's got 2 against the Leafs in a week. The Leafs come close, but not close enough. Philip Grubauer stands on his brain, 38 saves. Leafs lose 3-1 with the empty netter. What do you want? What do you want? I didn't think the Leafs had nearly enough high-danger scoring chances, that's for sure. I would have liked to see more out of Matthews. That's the thing. He rarely turns in a terrible game or a terrible effort. I just want more. I expect more. I really like that new look third line. I like the M&M line, whatever you want to call it, the Marner, Matthews, Nylander line. Yeah, I like Freddie. I like the new defense pairings. They just lost, man. It was on the second half of a back-to-back, and they lost to a team that, to me, is a top 5 team in the league. They're a cup contender. It's funny, on the broadcast, Brian Burke said that he wasn't sold on the goaltending, and then after the game, turns out goaltending was obviously the Avalanche's advantage. I don't know. I don't think this game was the end of the world, but it's really disappointing. And obviously they have a couple days off, thank goodness. But their next game is against the St. Louis Blues, and then they go on the Western Canadian road trip, which I hate it because they're so late. The only thing that's worse is the California road trip because, oh, it's late and I have no investment in who these teams are. The Western Canadian road trip coming around Christmas is great because Twitter's festive. But sometimes, I don't know, I wonder with this team because I'm looking at myself and I'm like, dude, I'm burnt out. It's not even Christmas. I'm burnt out. Enough. And I just think about these players, man, and all their back-to-backs and the schedule and, man, like, are some of them burnt out? Maybe. I mean, I think they should be renewed because they have this new opportunity to sort of rebuild their season. I don't know. I obviously don't have it. I'll go through questions as fast as possible so we can get to happy. With Janssen potentially out of the lineup, who do you think Keefe is going to use on Matthews' other wing? That is an excellent question, and I think I have a good answer. I really do like Andreas Janssen as a player, but something about him with Matthews doesn't seem to be working. So when he is healthy again, I'd like to see him somewhere else. Now, I don't know where that somewhere else is. I know I've already said I like the new look third line, and I think Keefe wants to look at that as a potential line matching line. Hyman, Kerfoot, and Kapanen. I want to see Hyman up there on that left wing role because I think he's really comfortable with it, and we've seen this before. We already know it works. I want to see Hyman up there with Matthews and Nylander, which allows you to keep together that Mikheyev, Tavares, Marner line. And that's versatile. I think it gives you a similar yet different look to what the line already is. If you want to use the big boy line again, the Matthews, Nylander, Marner line, you can still do that, and then the next shift you can throw out the third line again of Hyman, Kerfoot, and Kapanen. I think it's a good idea. Was that really that bad? I mean, the Avs are a pretty good team, and on everyone's second night, we were in until the end. No, I mean, we're saying that far too much. Oh, they were in it till the end, but I don't know. That, to me, was a good example of it being legit. It's just, we've had so many false alarms before this, right? Other than the overall disappointment of the season thus far, who or what has been the most frustrating thing to watch, in your opinion? Also, what do you think needs to be done to fix said problem? I think just our overall inability to cope with an 82-game season. Like, every freaking game. Like, if they're not gunning for last place, they gotta be gunning for first place. And, like, I don't know if we know how to handle a team that might barely make it, or barely not make it. I would highly recommend all of you, all of Leafs Nation, take all of Friday off from caring. Do not care about this team for 24 hours. Try it. I think you'll like it. Oh, and last thing before I get to Kadri, Nick Shore claimed off waivers by the Jets. Would have been nice to keep him, but Now, I tweeted this. What's your favorite Nazem Kadri memory? Now, I got a lot of responses from Bruins fans. Help the Bruins get by round 1 twice. And I know they're kidding, but helped the Bruins by being suspended. Bruins fans were afraid of him. It's awesome. And yeah, that's why he was traded, right? He got suspended for 8 games during back-to-back playoff series. That's why this guy who we love, and we'll talk about why we love him, was traded. So I wish Kadri hadn't have got suspended. He might have given the Leafs the series win and might have saved the Bruins the embarrassment of humiliating themselves in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final against the Blues. You ever been so tired you changed with less than 10 seconds left? Anyway. Okay, enough. What are your favorite Nazem Kadri memories? I got this tweet from a fan. You know, this is cool. I hate that Nazem Kadri's not a Leaf anymore, but I love how much he's openly embraced being a member of the Colorado Avalanche. He knows the opportunity in front of him. He knows he's got a real good shot at a cup, and when he raises it in June, oh, it's gonna hurt. Oh, his shootout goal against Tim Thomas in Boston. That was in March 2011, and that was absolutely fantastic. James Reimer had started his first stint with the Leafs, and they almost pulled off this miracle run to make the playoffs. They were doing so well. In fact, it wasn't until their next game, which was a home game against Washington, and Reimer made that ridiculous save on Marcus Johansson, remember that they got eliminated with, I want to say, 3 games to go. Naz, I remember so much of my life through Nazem Kadri memories. I happened to be at this game in Boston, and it was awesome. That was also the game that Jay Rosehill ended up fighting Milan Lucic, and you can see the look in Rosehill's eyes. Look this fight up, it's amazing, where he's like, oh shoot. I know what Milan Lucic is as a player now, but in 2011, dude, no one could mess with that guy. It was a great game to be at. That goal against the Isles, it's a little vague, but I think you're talking about his hat trick against the New York Islanders. And the funny thing about that, I believe the Leafs were up 4-2, and they ended up having to go to overtime despite Kadri's hat trick. However, Dion Phaneuf scored the overtime winner against Evgeny Nabokov, I believe, and the reason I remember all of this is because I was half in the bag, because I was nervous, because I was asking my future father-in-law for permission to marry his daughter. Again, that's what happens when you hitch your wagon to the Leafs. You kind of remember everything, and it becomes associated with your life, and Nazem Kadri has been an enormous part of that. Checking Connor McDavid into jelly all night before stripping the puck from him and winning it in overtime. The perfect Kadri game. God, that was so good. Correct me if I'm wrong, was that the Kadri for Selke season? Remember we tried to get that off the ground? It almost worked for a while. It will always be that time Russell scored on his own net and Naz just looked at him and laughed in his face. Also, my nephew and I met him when he was a Marley, and he made that 4-year-old boy's day. He was such a great dude. Yeah, you know, covering the Leafs and getting to talk to a lot of people, you hear some stories and, you know, sometimes they're a little bit disappointing. Never heard any of that with Kadri. Never, oh, he didn't have time for me, oh, he just walked on by. It sounds like he really embraced being a Leaf, and that meant really embrace being with the fans. He embraced being a Leaf, and he embraced the spotlight, which I think you have to do to survive as a Leaf, and some guys would do well to learn that. Oh, the pressure, oh, that, dude, they'll love you. People will buy your jersey even if you miss the playoffs. No one, it's the biggest thing in this city. Even if the Raptors take over as #1, which some would argue they already have, it'll be Raptors and Kadri being in ads with Jonas Valanciunas. Like, this guy was Toronto, man. It's anyway, we're trying to be happy. Honestly, the hat trick against Ottawa and the Cherry appearance. I think it is true that there is a certain Don Cherry blessing that he would give some players that would really hold up with certain fans. And Nazem Kadri getting the Doug Gilmour kiss obviously stayed with him the rest of his Leaf career. But he earned that. It's not like he had 1 or 2 good games where he laid a couple hits and scored a couple goals. Like, that's just the player he was. And then having Colton Orr and Fraser McLaren in there as well. Yeah, remember those names? That was pretty fun. Buffalo jump into the glass. Like, Kadri did something with the fans in the front row in Buffalo that a lot of Sabres can't even do in their own building. And there's another one. I remember that I was working at the NHL Network that night for that game, and I remember just going, oh my god, this guy may never cool down. It was his big breakout season during the lockout shortened season, and if I'm not mistaken, I had just proposed to my now wife. 2 more. That time Kadri scored and chirped Ristolainen. Yes, he had a very festive ongoings with him. And that time he bat-flitted Melker Karlsson's stick away. God, we could use a guy with that kind of swagger right now, man. He was a little too much sometimes, obviously to his detriment and the team's detriment. But man, it's nice having a guy like that on your side. And it was nice having him be relatively friendly in that game against the Leafs. Did you notice the only 2 guys he really tried to deck were guys he never played with? He tried to deck Mikheyev, and he did deck Engvall. Him, Bozak, and Riley combining on the Game 3 OT winner against Washington. It was a Lifetime Achievement Award for those guys who survived the darkest days of the franchise. I'm glad they all got to share in that one moment. And the photo's pretty legendary, too. Look at that. 42, 43, 44, and actually way there in the distance, maybe even the background of the photo. I wonder if you can see me. Actually, no, I wasn't that low. My wife was. So the story of that game is we bought separate tickets. She was able to get one one ticket behind the bench and another in like the obstructed seating. So we agreed to like alternate for all the periods. And I was so nervous. I think I had actually worked the tailgate for that game, you know, throwing t-shirts into the crowd and everything, but I got so nervous at that game that I had a few drinks in me, and like Larry Tenenbaum walked by, and I remember I like patted him on the shoulder. I'm like, "You're doing a great job." But then what happened, because it was my turn to go to the obstructed seating for overtime, and I wouldn't have even seen the goal, I'm pretty sure. But someone who we were talking to happened to have an extra ticket. Who goes to a game with an extra ticket? To one of the lounges behind us, and I stood there in like that sort of restaurant and watched the Bozak goal. Just a nice example of kindness from strangers. And I was losing my mind in the obstructed seat too. The Leafs, I want to say, were down. They had to kill a 5-on-3, and Martin Marincin was out there just throwing grenades into the slot, and I couldn't see it. All I had was the crowd reaction. Just, oh! The puck would go to the point. I would see it go to the point and be on like John Carlson or Kevin Shattenkirk or Alex Ovechkin's stick, and then just watch it go out of sight and go, ah! The draft when he got picked, oh, that was good. If you haven't seen the clip, you got to go back and watch it. But Brian Murray, rest in peace, of the Ottawa Senators, wanted him. And he told Brian Burke that he wanted him, and it was on camera and mic and everything. And Burke goes, well, we're taking him. And he goes up there, and he picks Nazem Kadri, and he gets booed by the entire Bell Center in Montreal. And the audio came out yesterday during the Sportsnet broadcast. He said, whatever, you're going to kick their ass. And he did. That time, Kadri absolutely snatched Emelin's soul out of his body. Dude, that guy windmill deked Emelin. He crushed him at least once, I think a couple times. I hated that player. Such a cheap, dirty player. And you know what? We got one too. Like, it always killed me. Like, you can't talk about Nazem Kadri if Emelin's on your team. You can't. And Kadri fed him his lunch more than once. It was awesome. Nazem Kadri demolishing Brooks Orpik twice in one shift before Austin Matthews scores will forever be his signature moment in Toronto. God, I love this season so much. Again, that was game 3, and I was at that game. I already told you that. I call that the Dart Guy shift, because you gotta remember, game 2 is when Dart Guy blew up. It was the double overtime Kapanen goal game, and they showed Dart Guy on TV, and obviously his phone starts blowing up and his Twitter starts blowing up, and then the legend of Dart Guy began. At the very next game, game 3 in Toronto, they obviously found him. The Leafs got a hold of Dart Guy, Jason Maslico, and they had him come to the game, and the Leafs are down 2-0 early. I'm sitting next to an Oilers fan who randomly went to that game. He was like, oh, they suck, and whatever, shut up. Anyway, Dart Guy is going nuts. Rah! Into the camera, the whole building, rah! And then the next shift, Kadri, rah! Just taking out Brooks Orpik, Komarov with a big hit, Kadri with a big hit again, and then he goes to the bench, Matthews comes out, snipes it, and he starts the comeback for the Leafs. God, that game ruled! Ripping Thornton's beard off, that was a good one. Teaching the Buffalo guy how to count, that's Ristolainen's life now, he's the Buffalo guy. Bob Ross for Halloween, that was amazing! And literally his whole existence. He's the reason why I started watching hockey. Seeing someone like him, seeing a brown person in this sport, gave me hope and joy. That was another important thing, man, and something that I'm not sure everyone quite understood. Having Nazem Kadri, not just in the league, but it does mean something that he's a Leaf, right? Oh, frig, was a Leaf. It did mean something that he was drafted by the Leafs, and a lot of people were like, that's my guy right away, and you really can't blame them. We miss you, Nas. Hope you win it somewhere else. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. It's time to take a little break.